Hello and welcome to the fourth and final part of Fund Managers Uncovered. In this series, we've been lifting the lid on the mutual fund management industry. The videos are based on a joint research project by a professor of finance and an expert in psychoanalysis. Richard Taffler and David Tuckett interviewed more than 50 top fund managers from Europe, Asia and the United States. Impressed though they were by the intelligence and integrity of the fund managers they interviewed, the researchers concluded that the whole investment industry is in need of reform.
If you look at it at all objectively, it isn't delivering. That is to say, what is actually happening is a significant transfer of wealth from the people whose money it is to the managers. And this is a very, very large sum of money, and I think it's really hard to justify. And I think many people in the industry are aware of that, but of course, who's going to be the first person to change it? There are a lot of people taking percentages. It's not just the fund managers, there's also the people helping people as to which funds to invest in. There's just far too much activity. There is a big problem, and I think it's not solved by people saying, oh, well, we should just have index funds, because if you just have index funds, then who's going to make the market? Plus, it's not at all clear that this whole system does what it's meant to do, at least in economic theory, which is on the one hand to provide a reasonable, optimal income for those investing, and on the other to ensure that funds go to places in the economy which most need them.
The biggest problem the researchers found is that the system demands that active fund managers achieve the impossible, namely to outperform the market after costs consistently. They say we need to reassess what active fund managers are for and what we can realistically expect them to achieve.
Fund management and the present structure of the industry is based on a myth that everyone subscribes to implicitly and doesn't actually stand back and ask what the real role of the fund management industry should be. And it has a fundamental role. Active fund management does have a role, but it's different to how it's presently constructed and sold to investors. This role revolves around what they are able to do for their investors, which their investors can't do themselves. We should be, for example, not using index benchmarks necessarily, but looking at what individual investors would be doing themselves, and all the literature in finance is uniform, that the more retail investors invest themselves, the more they lose. So that's an important comparator which is not generally talked about. Secondly, fund managers have a key role in alleviating and managing and containing the uncertainty of the unknowable future in investment terms. Again, this is something not acknowledged. Fund managers are skilled, they have broad shoulders, they are far better able to deal with the unpredictable future than individual investors are, who don't have the necessary ability and are emotionally completely tied up in this.
The researchers stopped short of making specific recommendations for reforming the industry, but they would like to see a greater emphasis on long-term performance.
The whole system really has become increasingly short-term because the fundamental uncertainties and conflicts in which it's trying to deal with, people half know. And so people are less and less confident. And by people, I mean investors, I mean fund managers themselves. I remember one person, I was astonished when he told me, he'd been in the industry 21 years, right? Very successful. And he told me, you know, if you have so many quarters of bad performance, you'll be fired. And I said, really? You'd be fired after all this track record? And he said, yeah, don't kid yourself, David. These are his exact words. Everyone sort of knows this is a bit odd. I mean, unless something's really gone wrong with him, which of course is always possible in life, this is the same man. And there's some famous instances in the newspapers at the moment of these so-called top stars. But the fact is that top stars, is it really skill or is it luck or what? And can you persist in it? And so the whole thing is riddled with conflicts and difficulties and emotions, which really need to be much better discussed and are hidden insofar as we pretend this is all a mathematical type exercise.
And that brings our series to an end. Thank you to Richard Taffler and David Tuckett, and to you, of course, for watching. Remember, we always like to receive your comments, so please keep them coming in. Goodbye.